The crossing. March 22, 1945. 2:45 hours. Oppenheim, Germany, east bank of the Rhine. The river is black and swollen, sliding past like cold steel. Moonlight fractures on the water's surface, broken by drifting mist and the low silhouettes of assault boats hugging the near shore. American engineers crouch in silence, boots sunk into wet mud, breath fogging the night air. Somewhere across the Rhine, German sentries wait, unaware that the moment they were supposed to fear is already here. No artillery preparation. No grand announcement. No photographers. Just engines idling low and orders whispered through clenched teeth. General George S. Patton's Third Army is crossing the Rhine. You can hear it before you see it, the muted splash of paddles, the creak of wood under weight, the distant thud of tank engines lining up behind the treeline. The men know what this river means. For years it has been a psychological barrier, the final natural shield of the German heartland. Hitler swore it would never be crossed. German propaganda called it the last wall. Tonight it's just water. On the west bank, Patton stands stiffly under a camouflage tarp, helmet pulled low, ivory-handled pistols absent but unmistakable in memory. His jaw is set. He does not raise his voice. He doesn't need to. The order has already been given days ago, quietly, deliberately, without asking permission. Across the Allied front, British forces are still preparing. Far to the north, Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery is assembling one of the largest set-piece operations of the war. Thousands of vehicles, airborne drops, massive artillery barrages, press briefings, maps printed in advance. Operation Plunder is meant to be monumental, a carefully staged crossing of the Rhine that will symbolize Allied unity and British leadership at the war's climax. But that operation is still days away. Patton couldn't wait. At 2:57, the 1st American Infantry reaches the far bank. There is scattered small arms fire, nervous, disorganized. German defenders, pulled thin and exhausted, are caught completely off balance. They had expected air raids, bombardment, a warning. They get none. Within minutes, machine guns are dragged ashore. Radios crackle alive. Engineers begin marking ferry points. Behind them, tank crews rev engines, tracks grinding as pontoon bridges are prepared under the cover of darkness. The impossible is happening, quietly. By dawn, American flags are already fluttering on the eastern bank of the Rhine. Patton does not celebrate. He orders coffee. Then movement. Fast movement. The Third Army surges forward, punching holes in German lines before higher command has even finished processing the reports. Prisoners pour in, confused, demoralized, some still in civilian coats. Entire defensive plans collapse before breakfast. News travels quickly up the chain of command. Too quickly. By mid-morning, headquarters across Europe are buzzing. Maps are updated. Red grease pencil lines are redrawn in a hurry. And with every update comes the same realization. Patton has crossed the Rhine first. Not Montgomery. Not the British. Not with ceremony. The reaction in Allied command rooms is immediate and explosive. In the north, Montgomery's carefully prepared operation now looks oversized, slow, theatrical. Months of planning, enormous logistical effort and political capital, all suddenly overshadowed by a single audacious move made without fanfare. To Montgomery, this is not just a tactical surprise. It is a public humiliation. He sees recklessness, not brilliance. Disobedience, not initiative. A dangerous American general stealing history before Britain can claim its moment. And as reports confirm the scale of Patton's success, Montgomery's anger hardens into something sharper. Accusation. In staff meetings his voice rises. Patton, he argues, is out of control. Acting independently. Ignoring Allied coordination. Endangering unity at the most critical phase of the war. This is not how coalitions win, Montgomery insists. This is how they fracture. Behind closed doors the language becomes harsher. Patton must be stopped. Restricted. Possibly removed. Messages are drafted. Complaints are formalized. The issue is escalated, not to Eisenhower first but higher. To London. By the evening of March 23, the Rhine is no longer the center of the story. The real battle is about to begin. Far from the river, an office is thick with smoke, pride, and unfinished grudges. A battle of egos between two of the war's most powerful commanders. And soon, one man will be forced to decide which matters more. Control. Or victory. The fallout. March 23, 1945. Midday. Allied headquarters, Northwest Europe. The room smells of cigarette smoke and damp wool. Maps cover the walls. Rhine crossings marked in thick red lines, arrows thrusting eastward into Germany. Phones ring without pause. Couriers move in and out with folders tucked tight against their chests. The war is accelerating and everyone can feel it. At the center of it all sits General Dwight D. Eisenhower. He reads the report again. Then again. Patton's Third Army has secured multiple bridgeheads east of the Rhine. Casualties are lighter than expected. German resistance is crumbling faster than intelligence predicted. It is, by every measurable standard, a success. But Eisenhower doesn't smile. Because the success has detonated a political minefield. Across the Channel and across the Allied command structure, Bernard Montgomery is already reacting. His staff is furious. Operation Plunder, months in the making, is now at risk of looking redundant, even wasteful. The press will ask why such an enormous British-led operation was necessary when the Americans crossed the Rhine with speed and surprise. Montgomery's answer is blunt. Patton acted recklessly. He bypassed Allied coordination. He endangered a unified command. He sought personal glory at a moment meant to symbolize collective victory. In Montgomery's telling, Patton is not a hero of initiative. He is a liability. And Montgomery is not whispering these accusations. Formal complaints are prepared. Messages move rapidly through secure channels. Eisenhower receives pointed memoranda questioning Patton's judgment, his discipline, and his suitability to command during the final phase of the war. Montgomery's demand is clear. Patton must be reined in, if not removed entirely. To Montgomery, this is about order, about method, about the right way to fight a coalition war. He has spent years cultivating a public image of careful planning and deliberate execution. The Rhine crossing was meant to be his culminating act, a statement of British competence and leadership before the final push to Berlin. Patton has shattered that script. Inside Eisenhower's headquarters, the mood tightens. Staff officers exchange uneasy glances. Everyone knows Patton's history: brilliant, volatile, politically dangerous. This is the same general who slapped soldiers in Sicily. The same commander who speaks faster than diplomats can explain him away. But it's also the same man whose armies keep moving when others slow. Eisenhower understands the dilemma better than anyone. As Supreme Allied Commander, his job is not just to win battles, it's to hold the alliance together. Britain and America are partners, but pride still runs deep. Montgomery is not just a field marshal, he is a national symbol. Ignoring him outright could fracture trust. Yet punishing Patton now would send a dangerous signal to every aggressive commander pushing forward on the front lines. Win too well and you'll be punished. The reports keep coming in. Patton's armor is already rolling east. German units are surrendering by the thousands. Roads once expected to be heavily defended are open. The Third Army's momentum is undeniable. And still the pressure mounts. Montgomery's complaints do not stay confined to military channels. They drift upward toward political leadership. Toward London. Toward a man whose opinion carries weight far beyond rank insignia. Winston Churchill. In Britain, Churchill is following the situation closely. The Rhine has always held a mythic significance, a natural boundary, a symbol of German strength. To cross it is not merely tactical, it is historical. And Montgomery was supposed to be the face of that moment. Now the headlines are threatening to tell a different story. Churchill listens as aides brief him. Patton crossed early. Montgomery is furious. There are calls, strong calls, for discipline, for control. For a public reminder that no single general operates above Allied strategy. Churchill lights a cigar. He exhales slowly. This is not the first time he has dealt with bruised egos in wartime. Nor will it be the last. But he understands something many generals do not. Wars are not won on paper plans alone. They are won by momentum. By pressure. By refusing to let the enemy breathe. And Patton, whatever his flaws, is suffocating Germany. Still, Churchill does not rush his response. He asks questions. He reads reports. He notes casualty figures. He studies how quickly German lines are collapsing where Patton advances. Behind the scenes, Montgomery continues to press. His language grows sharper. Patton's behavior, he argues, could inspire chaos. Other commanders might begin acting independently. The carefully balanced Allied structure could unravel. This is no longer just a military argument. It is a struggle for narrative control. Who defines victory? Who claims the decisive moment? And who gets remembered when the war ends? As Churchill considers his reply, Eisenhower waits. Every hour that passes allows Patton to push farther into Germany, and allows Montgomery's anger to harden. Something has to give. Soon Churchill will respond. not with a long memorandum, not with compromise language, but with something far more dangerous. A single, decisive judgment. And when it comes, it will cut through months of planning, years of rivalry, and one field marshal's wounded pride in an instant. The Prime Minister decides. March 24, 1945. Late afternoon. 10 Downing Street, London. Rain streaks the windows, blurring the street outside into grey motion. Inside, the lamps glow low. The walls are lined with maps of Europe, pins clustered deep inside Germany now, the front moving faster than anyone predicted. Papers lie scattered across the desk. Briefings from Eisenhower, operational summaries, casualty figures, intercepted German communications. Winston Churchill sits heavily in his chair. The cigar between his fingers has burned down twice already. He listens as the situation is laid out once more. Patton has crossed the Rhine ahead of schedule. Bridgeheads secured. German resistance collapsing. Momentum accelerating. And alongside every success, the same refrain returns, Montgomery's protest. The field marshal's message is not vague. It is firm. Patton's action, Montgomery insists, undermines Allied unity. The Rhine crossing was meant to be coordinated, symbolic, unmistakably collective. Instead, one American general has acted alone, driven by ambition, risking confusion at the worst possible moment. Churchill does not interrupt. He has heard versions of this argument before. In 1940. In 1941. From admirals who wanted caution. From generals who feared boldness. From men who believed war could be managed safely, neatly, predictably. Churchill knows better. He asks for the casualty figures again. They are lower than expected. He asks how fast Patton's advance is moving. Faster than planned. He asks how German command is responding. They aren't. Not coherently. The Prime Minister leans back, eyes narrowing. He understands Montgomery's frustration. He understands British pride. The Rhine crossing was supposed to be a moment, carefully framed, unmistakable, remembered. A capstone to Britain's long, painful war. But Churchill also understands something deeper. Wars do not pause for symbolism. Across the Channel, Eisenhower waits for guidance. He knows whatever decision comes from London will echo across the entire Allied command. Rein in Patton, and the message is clear. Initiative has limits. Allow him to continue, and Montgomery will feel publicly undermined. Churchill takes a long drag on his cigar. Then he speaks. Not loudly. Not theatrically. But with unmistakable finality. He dismisses the notion of removal outright. A commander who is breaking through German defenses, shortening the war and reducing Allied casualties, Churchill argues, cannot be punished for success. To do so would be folly. Worse, it would be unjust. He makes it clear that Patton's advance is not a problem to be solved. It is an opportunity to be exploited. Whatever Montgomery's feelings, Churchill will not halt momentum for the sake of appearances. He will not slow the destruction of the German war machine because one operation has been outpaced by another. And he will certainly not fire a general who is winning, while the enemy is collapsing. The message is blunt. Patton stays. When the response reaches Eisenhower, there is no ambiguity. Churchill's words leave no room for reinterpretation. The argument is over before it can evolve into a formal crisis. Eisenhower exhales. For him, the decision is a relief, and a warning. The alliance holds, but just barely. Personalities remain volatile. Rivalries remain unresolved. And Montgomery, brilliant though he is, will not forget this moment. News of the decision filters quietly through headquarters. No announcement. No press release. Just an unspoken understanding that Patton will continue driving east, unhindered. On the ground, the Third Army feels it immediately. Orders emphasize speed. Bridges are thrown across rivers almost as soon as engineers reach them. Armor rolls day and night. Infantry advances barely pause to regroup. German units surrender in droves, too exhausted and too disorganized to resist. Patton senses it. He knows the danger passed close. He does not receive Churchill's words directly, but he understands the outcome. He has been given room to operate, and time is the one resource he will not waste. Yet across the Channel the mood is darker. Montgomery receives the decision in silence. His staff waits tense. Months of preparation now feel overshadowed, his authority challenged not by the enemy but by an ally. Operation Plunder will still go forward, but its meaning has shifted. What was meant to be the decisive crossing now feels like a confirmation of something already achieved. Montgomery's pride is wounded, and pride in wartime does not heal easily. Still, the war does not slow to accommodate emotions. By the end of March, Allied forces are flooding into Germany from multiple directions. Cities fall in rapid succession. German command structures disintegrate. The end, once distant and abstract, now feels close enough to touch. But beneath the success, tensions simmer. Patton continues pushing. Montgomery continues advancing. And Eisenhower walks a narrowing line between brilliance and breakdown. One decision has ended the argument, for now. But the rivalry it exposed has not vanished. It has merely been buried beneath the thunder of advancing tanks. And as Germany collapses, the question lingers in the air. What happens when victory finally arrives, and the fighting stops? Momentum unleashed. Late March 1945. Central Germany. Patton's Third Army sector. The sound never really stops now. Engines growl through shattered villages. Tank tracks grind over broken cobblestones. Radios crackle with clipped commands, overlapping, urgent, constant. The Third Army moves like a living thing, fast, restless, hungry for distance. Day and night blur together as columns roll east, bridges thrown across rivers almost as soon as engineers arrive. Patton has been unleashed. With Churchill's decision hanging invisibly over the front, there are no restraints now, only objectives. Advance. Bypass resistance. Keep moving. The German army, already battered and undersupplied, finds itself unable to form a coherent line. Units retreat into one another. Orders arrive too late. Fuel runs out. Ammunition disappears. Whole formations simply dissolve. You see it in the faces of prisoners, teenagers and gray-haired men, eyes hollow, hands shaking as they raise them beside the road. Some still carry rifles. Many do not. They have been told for years that the Rhine was Germany's shield. Now the shield is behind them. Patton rides forward in his command car, standing when the road allows it, scanning the horizon with restless energy. He talks constantly, about speed, about pressure, about never letting the enemy recover. To those around him, it feels like he can smell hesitation. And he hates it. His orders are simple. If resistance is light, go around it. If it's heavy, break it quickly and move on. No pauses for perfection. No waiting for cleaner lines on a map. Every mile gained is another nail driven into the coffin of the Third Reich. Behind him, Eisenhower watches the situation evolve with a mixture of admiration and anxiety. Patton's progress is undeniable. He is outpacing expectations, outpacing logistics, outpacing even Allied planners. Supply officers struggle to keep fuel flowing. Bridges creak under the weight of endless traffic. But for now it works. In the north, Montgomery's Operation Plunder finally begins. Massive, thunderous, impossible to ignore. Artillery lights up the sky. Airborne troops drop behind German lines. The British crossing of the Rhine is successful, professional, and devastating. Yet the contrast is unavoidable. Montgomery's crossing is loud, deliberate, and symbolic. Patton's was quiet and decisive. The press notices. So do politicians. So do officers on both sides of the Atlantic. Within Allied circles, whispers begin. Is Patton the future of warfare, speed over spectacle, aggression over ceremony? Or is he a dangerous exception? A commander who wins now but creates chaos later? Montgomery hears the whispers too. Publicly he maintains composure. Privately the sting remains. His operation is no failure, it is textbook, but it lacks the raw drama of Patton's audacity. History, he knows, does not always reward those who do things the right way. It remembers those who arrive first. And Patton arrived first. As March turns into April, the Third Army pushes deeper into Germany. Cities fall in quick succession. Frankfurt, Würzburg, Nuremberg looms ahead. German resistance becomes erratic, fierce in isolated pockets, non-existent in others. In one town, American tanks roll through streets lined with white flags. In another, snipers fire until they are silenced without ceremony. The war is ending unevenly, chaotically, exactly as Patton predicted it would. But with speed comes risk. Lines stretch thin. Flanks widen. Intelligence lags behind movement. There are moments, brief, dangerous moments, when German counterattacks threaten exposed units. Each time, Patton responds the same way. More speed. More pressure. No time for fear. Eisenhower worries. He cannot help it. The alliance is winning, but it is winning at the edge of control. One major misstep, one overextended spearhead cut off, and critics will say Montgomery was right. That Patton's recklessness endangered everything. And those critics are watching closely. In London, Churchill follows the reports with grim satisfaction. Germany is collapsing faster than anyone dared hope. Each mile Patton advances shortens the war, saves lives and vindicates Churchill's decision. Still, Churchill is not blind to the cost. Patton's personality remains volatile. His public statements are carefully managed. His movements are constantly monitored. Success has bought him freedom, but not forgiveness for future mistakes. Across Europe, Allied soldiers sense the end approaching. There is relief. There is exhaustion. And there is a growing awareness that the war's final chapter is being written at breathtaking speed. Yet beneath the victory, the rivalries remain unresolved. Montgomery continues advancing from the north, methodical and relentless. Patton charges from the west, unpredictable and unstoppable. And Eisenhower, caught between them, balances diplomacy with necessity every single day. The question is no longer whether Germany will fall. It is how, and who will define the story of its collapse. As April approaches, one thing becomes clear. Patton's drive is reshaping the endgame. Lines on maps mean less now than roads, bridges, and hours. Whoever moves fastest will shape the post-war reality. And Patton is moving faster than anyone. But speed has a price. Soon, Patton's momentum will carry him into territory far more dangerous than German resistance. Into political minefields, moral reckoning, and decisions that victory alone cannot justify. The war may be ending. But the consequences of how it ends are just beginning to surface. Egos at the edge of victory. Early April 1945. Western Germany. Allied command zones converging. The landscape changes as the armies push deeper east. The forests thin. Industrial towns replace medieval villages. Smoke rises not just from battle, but from factories abandoned in haste, rail yards choked with wrecked locomotives, roads jammed with carts and refugees moving in every direction at once. Victory is close enough to taste. And that makes everything more dangerous. In Eisenhower's headquarters, the map has become crowded, arrows overlapping, boundaries blurring. Patton's Third Army presses forward with breathtaking speed. Montgomery's forces advance steadily from the north. Bradley's armies drive hard through central Germany. The enemy is collapsing, but the Allied machine is straining under its own momentum. This is where egos flare. Patton wants to keep going. Always east. He talks openly about racing to Berlin, about beating the Soviets, about finishing the war with a single, decisive thrust. His staff hears it constantly. Speed, he insists, will solve everything. Eisenhower hears something else. The political reality is tightening around him. The Soviets are advancing rapidly from the east. Agreements made months earlier, at Yalta in quiet rooms far from the front, now cast long shadows over the battlefield. Berlin, once the ultimate prize, is no longer simply a military objective. It is a political fault line. And Patton is charging straight toward it. Montgomery, for his part, sees opportunity slipping away. He argues for a concentrated northern thrust, a clean, overwhelming blow that would seize key territory and present a unified Allied front. His language is measured, but the implication is clear. Patton's chaos could complicate the endgame. The rivalry that exploded after the Rhine crossing never truly cooled. It just went quiet. Officers feel it in planning meetings, the clipped tones, the careful phrasing, the unspoken accusations. Each success by Patton is praised and questioned in the same breath. Each delay by Montgomery is defended as prudence. Churchill watches from London, aware that his earlier decision still echoes. He knows Patton is useful, indispensable even, but also unstable. He has backed momentum once. He may not be able to do it again. On the ground, the war's human cost becomes harder to ignore. American soldiers enter camps they were never briefed for. Towns reveal truths long hidden. The victory rush slows, replaced by shock, anger, and a grim sense of responsibility. These discoveries harden resolve, but they also change the tone of the advance. Patton reacts in his own way. He pushes harder. He wants to end it now. But the leash begins to tighten. Eisenhower issues clearer boundaries. Zones of advance are reinforced. Orders emphasize coordination over improvisation. Patton bristles. He follows the orders, but just barely, always probing, always testing how far he can go without crossing a line. Montgomery notices. He presses his case again, subtly this time. Not for Patton's removal, but for control. Clear limits. Defined axes. A reminder that no single commander owns the war's conclusion. The press adds fuel. Articles praise Patton's dash, his audacity, his results. Others warn of recklessness, of showmanship. Montgomery's name appears beside words like methodical and disciplined. Patton's beside brilliant and dangerous. History, it seems, is already choosing sides. In early April, the Allied advance slows, not because of German resistance but because of decisions. Where to stop? Where to turn? What to leave for the Soviets? These are questions tanks cannot answer. Patton fumes. He knows the enemy is beaten. He can feel it. Every mile delayed feels like betrayal, of his men, of momentum, of the chance to end the war on his terms. He talks too much. He complains too openly. His words travel farther than he intends. Montgomery, watching from the north, understands the shift. The moment after the Rhine was Patton's. The moment approaching now belongs to politics. And politics favors control. Churchill senses it as well. His support for Patton was never unconditional. It was situational, a bet placed when speed mattered most. Now, as victory nears, Churchill's priorities change. Stability, order, legacy. The same qualities that made Patton indispensable begin to make him inconvenient. Yet the results cannot be denied. German resistance is collapsing everywhere Patton has passed. His drive has torn open the western half of Germany, shortened the war, and saved untold lives by refusing to let the enemy regroup. That truth hangs over every argument. Eisenhower stands at the center of it all, balancing success against sustainability. He knows Patton must be managed, not celebrated. He knows Montgomery must be respected, not indulged. And he knows the alliance must emerge intact, not just victorious. As April deepens, the front lines stabilize into something new, not a battlefield but a border. Lines that will soon define occupation zones, influence post-war power, and shape Europe for decades. The race is no longer about defeating Germany. It's about what comes after. And in that race, Patton's greatest strength, his relentless drive, may finally collide with a wall no amount of speed can break. The war is ending. But the fight for control of its ending is about to reach its most delicate moment yet. The line is drawn. Mid-April 1945. Central Germany. Near the Elbe River. The road ends abruptly. Not in rubble. Not in fire. But in orders. Patton's forward elements reach the outskirts of towns that appear almost untouched by battle. Bridges still stand. German units are retreating without cohesion. The way east feels open, dangerously open. To Patton it looks like opportunity. One last surge could carry his tanks even farther, perhaps farther than any American force has gone before. Then the radio messages arrive. Clear. Final. Non-negotiable. The Third Army is to halt at the designated line. The Elbe River is the boundary. Beyond it lies the Soviet zone. Patton reads the message twice. His jaw tightens. To him this makes no military sense. The enemy is collapsing. Resistance is scattered. Every instinct tells him to push, to exploit the weakness while it still exists. But this is no longer a battlefield decision. It is a political one. Eisenhower has drawn the line, guided by agreements signed months earlier and pressures now impossible to ignore. The Red Army is approaching Berlin from the east, suffering enormous casualties. The decision has been made at the highest levels. The Western Allies will stop short and allow the Soviets to take the German capital. Patton explodes, privately. He argues. He fumes. He insists the war could be ended faster, cleaner, with fewer losses if allowed to continue. His staff hears it all. Some agree. Others know better. This is not a hill Eisenhower can afford to die on. And Patton knows it too. Reluctantly, the Third Army slows. Tanks idle. Infantry digs in, not against the Germans but against the strange, unnatural feeling of stopping when victory is still in sight. Soldiers who have fought for months now watch the horizon instead of advancing toward it. On the far side of the line, distant artillery rumbles. Berlin is burning. Montgomery, advancing from the north, understands exactly what is happening. He does not protest. He does not argue. He has learned the rhythm of the alliance, the way military ambition eventually yields to political reality. The race he once envisioned is over, not because of defeat but because of decision. And this time, Patton is the one restrained. The irony is sharp. Only weeks earlier Montgomery had demanded limits, control, discipline. Now Patton finds himself bound by the very framework Montgomery always championed. Churchill watches the situation unfold with mixed emotions. Germany is finished. The Nazi regime is collapsing. But the map of Europe is hardening into something new, something cold, divided, and uncertain. The war that demanded speed now demands caution. Patton's usefulness is changing. His victories are undeniable. His momentum helped shatter the German West. But his temperament, his inability to stop wanting more, becomes increasingly dangerous in a world transitioning from war to peace. The Third Army continues to mop up resistance within its zone. Prisoners pour in. Weapons are stacked. Entire German units surrender without firing a shot. The fighting for Patton's men is effectively over. But for Patton himself, it feels unfinished. He cannot shake the belief that history is slipping through his fingers, that others will claim the climax he believes he earned, that speed and aggression, once celebrated, are now treated like liabilities. His comments grow sharper. About the Soviets, about politics, about what should have been done. Eisenhower hears them. So do others. The alliance that once tolerated Patton's outbursts in exchange for results now finds fewer reasons to look the other way. The war's end removes the shield that success once provided. With Germany defeated, words matter more than tanks. Montgomery, for his part, says little publicly. His reputation remains intact, steady, professional, controlled. History will record his contributions without controversy. That, too, is a kind of victory. Patton senses the shift. The man who crossed the Rhine ahead of schedule, who shattered German defenses with audacity and speed, now finds himself boxed in by borders he did not choose. His role is shrinking, not because he failed but because the world is changing. As April fades into May, Allied armies settle into occupation roles. Flags change. Checkpoints appear. The machinery of war begins to dismantle itself. And with it, the tolerance for risk. Churchill reflects privately on his earlier decision. The moment he sided with momentum over pride. It was the right call then. Without question. But he also knows that leadership is about timing. What saves lives in March can create crises in May. Patton's line-crossing instinct, once invaluable, now threatens stability. The same force that broke the Rhine barrier cannot be allowed to break the peace. The war in Europe is ending. But the judgment of the men who fought it, how they acted, what they said, where they stopped, has only begun. And for George S. Patton, the hardest boundary he will face is not a river or an enemy line. It is the moment when victory no longer needs him to charge forward. It needs him to stand still. Legacy in the balance. Late April 1945. Berlin outskirts. Allied High Command conference room. Maps lie open, pins and strings marking zones of occupation. Soldiers move outside the windows, trucks loaded with supplies and captured arms. The war is ending, but the machinery of governance is just beginning. Every decision made now will echo for decades. Patton sits quietly in his office, reviewing reports. His hands are steady, but his eyes burn with the same intensity that fueled his Rhine crossing. He knows the Third Army has accomplished extraordinary feats. Cities liberated, German forces broken, bridges crossed ahead of schedule. Yet he feels a peculiar emptiness. The thrill of the advance has been replaced by orders to hold, to wait, to defer to politics. Montgomery, in contrast, moves with calm precision. His forces occupy strategic positions in northern Germany. The Rhine crossing he planned is a textbook success. Newspapers praise the coordination, the planning, the discipline. Montgomery's reputation grows, not just in Britain but across the Allies. In the background, Patton's daring exploits are admired but increasingly controversial. Eisenhower meets with both men. Diplomacy threads every word. He must maintain cohesion between allies. He praises Patton's audacity, acknowledging the speed and impact of his operations, but also emphasizes the need to respect boundaries, agreements, and political realities. He commends Montgomery for his meticulous planning and execution, reassuring him that his contributions are pivotal. Churchill, observing from London, notes the delicate balance. He had sided with momentum over pride when it mattered most, when speed could save lives and hasten victory. That decision allowed Patton to shatter German defenses, shortening the war in the West. Yet Churchill also understands that the aftermath of victory is governed not by battlefield brilliance alone, but by the capacity to navigate politics, perception, and alliance. Patton's crossing of the Rhine becomes a case study in military history. Boldness versus bureaucracy, initiative versus coordination, audacity versus diplomacy. Strategists will debate the merits for decades. Students will learn of his lightning advance and its impact, while also noting the tensions it caused among allies. Montgomery's complaints, though publicly softened, remain a historical footnote, a reminder that even among victors, egos, pride, and national interest shape decisions as much as strategy and courage. The Rhine crossing was more than a military maneuver. It was a microcosm of alliance dynamics. It revealed that wars are won not just with tanks, bullets, and courage, but also through negotiation, timing, and judgment. Churchill's single decisive sentence, defending Patton's audacity, cemented the momentum that would hasten Germany's defeat. Yet it also highlighted the fragile balance between military success and political prudence. In the minds of the commanders, there is no satisfaction without consequence. Patton has proven his brilliance, but he has also learned that the freedom to act is bounded by alliance politics. Montgomery has secured his legacy of methodical competence, but he will forever carry the sting of being outpaced. The Rhine crossing, now complete, is not merely a historical event. It is a narrative of leadership, rivalry, and the weight of decision-making under extraordinary circumstances. A reminder that in war, one bold choice can accelerate victory, but the aftermath of that choice shapes how history remembers those who dared to act. As Europe braces for the final days of conflict, one truth becomes evident: speed can win battles, but wisdom decides the story that follows. The Final Judgment. Early May 1945. Allied command centers across Europe. Germany's surrender looms. The streets of liberated towns are quiet now, broken only by the distant rumble of trucks and the murmurs of civilians emerging from months of fear. Across Europe, soldiers clean rifles, process prisoners, and prepare for occupation duties. Flags of the Allies flap in tentative victory, yet the war is not entirely over. Not in hearts, not in minds, not in reports stacked on tables across command centers. Patton stands on a hill overlooking a small German town. Smoke drifts from the ruins of a rail yard, sunlight glinting off the remnants of tanks and artillery. His Third Army is poised, victorious, unstoppable, yet constrained. He cannot push beyond the orders drawn by Eisenhower, under the oversight of Churchill and the agreements with the Soviets. His instinct urges forward. His conscience, however, knows the war's end is now governed by politics as much as force. Montgomery, in contrast, inspects northern bridges and city fortifications with methodical precision. His plan executed as intended. The crossing of the Rhine, the consolidation of territory, the coordination of forces, all validated. His reputation is secure, his nation proud. He has played the long game and, in terms of procedure and order, he has won the respect of peers and history alike. Churchill reflects in London. His earlier choice to defend Patton's audacity has shortened the war. Millions of lives saved. German infrastructure collapsing faster. Momentum maintained. But Churchill also knows that victory requires balance. Boldness alone cannot shape peace. Discipline, diplomacy, and timing must follow. Patton's Rhine crossing has become legend. It symbolizes initiative, speed, and audacity. Yet, for every admirer there are critics. Questions linger: did he risk too much? Could a single misstep have cost the Allies dearly? Montgomery's complaints, once dismissed, now resonate as a cautionary tale about leadership in coalitions. History records both men differently. Patton, the brilliant, unpredictable, unstoppable force. Montgomery, the meticulous, methodical, disciplined strategist. Churchill, the leader who understood when to bend rules, when to back audacity, and when to rein it in. Eisenhower, the mediator, balancing ambition with alliance cohesion, ensuring that victory is shared and sustainable. The Rhine, once a river of defense for Germany, now lies behind them, a symbol of both triumph and tension. It shows that wars are won not just by crossing rivers or taking cities, but by navigating the complex human and political landscapes that define alliances. One line from Churchill defended momentum over pride, allowing Patton to achieve what seemed impossible. That single sentence did not merely end a dispute, it shaped the final months of the European conflict. The war in Europe is over. But the stories born of that crossing, of ambition, rivalry, judgment, and boldness, will echo for generations. One lesson remains clear: leadership is measured not only by victories on the battlefield, but by the wisdom to know which battles to fight, and which to pause for. The Rhine crossing was not the end of conflict. It was the beginning of legacy. If you enjoyed this, like and subscribe.